4, 3, 2, 1.
Dave Smith, welcome back to Breakdown.
Hey, Matt, thanks so much for having me.
You've launched a flurry of new products, I believe, since you've been on. You have this booking add-on, which we can chat about today for Gravity Forms. You've been enhancing your spellbook feature set, which I think I didn't even talk to you about. I talked to Cole about that stuff. And now you're back with API Alchemist, which is a really, really interesting feature set to the rest of your products and, of course, to Gravity Forms. So I'm excited to dive into all those things today.
Awesome. Yeah, we have been very busy for sure. It's the classic scenario where we, even internally, have been struggling to decide what should take the spotlight.
How much does ChatGPT help guide your direction?
Not very much. I do use it for like personal counseling. I love it just to challenge my own ideas. But when it comes to actually shaping the direction of the business, it has some random ideas. If I was a more courageous founder, CEO, I might go for some of the ideas. But generally speaking, we just kind of do a little consensus between me and my partner, Clay.
Has it been helping with the software development side of the business to iterate and move faster with any of this stuff? Like, how is it really affecting, if at all, your production output?
So I have the unfortunate blessing and curse of not having to touch code very much anymore these days. But Clay has mentioned several times how profound the impact has been for him. I know GP Bookings was the first project that he kind of said, hey, I am going to force myself to use AI on this project from start to finish just to find the edges of it. And I think the final estimation there was something around 80-20. 80% of the code was written by AI, 20% by him, and obviously 100% validated by a human.
Yeah. Of course. Little disclaimer there. We're not just shipping AI code without it. There's a so I still follow the podcasting industry really close, and podcasting industry is pretty big these days, of course, with YouTube trying to claim podcasting to themselves, which don't get me started, but it's a pretty big industry. And there's this company that has been making a splash, and I'm going to forget the name of the company, which is a good thing because we don't really need to care about them, but they've been cranking out 3,000 AI podcast episodes a week of a AI generated, like the content's all AI generated, and then the voice probably using like 11 Labs, or maybe they're doing some homegrown thing where it's just pumping out content across all like silos of industries. And the podcast industry is a little perturbed with that.
Yeah.
Because even there was a CEO, and I say this because, when we think about the ethics of AI, I think about this stuff quite often, and especially how it'll impact WordPress, which, maybe we'll talk about in a little bit. But even the CEO, she was interviewed recently and admitted that even her small team of humans don't review all the content. And she admits, like, how could we keep up with that? And it's like, well, maybe that's the issue. Maybe you shouldn't be shipping that much unedited and reviewed content that goes out to the world. Just a thought.
The natural threshold, right, is if you can't review this, then maybe don't. I agree with that completely. That's definitely where we're at with code, at least. You're actually making me think about Sora 2. I know that came out somewhat recently, and I saw the first like actual demo of it. I think Casey Neistat did a YouTube video of it, and it just strikes me as such an interesting concept that I don't fully understand the market that's going to consume this content. That's the thing that's missing for me. Obviously, there must be some money there, but I'm like, who is it that wants to view this? For me, when I look at art or a podcast or a YouTube video, it is the fact that there is a human behind it, and that kind of that parasocial relationship that develops there. That's part of the experience for me. So going in, just watching, especially for entertainment, not just informational, but just entertainment. that has been essentially pre-generated for you by AI, I may, maybe 10 years from now and be like, oh, I was so dumb. It's so good. But right now I just can't see it.
Well, how does that relate to the business? And, famously, Gravity Wiz has just a ton of snippets. Do you have customers coming to you now going, hey, look, I built this thing with AI? Or are you getting support requests where somebody might come to you and say, hey, I took your snippet or I took your add-on and I added my own stuff to it. Please support me. Is that happening at your company? Or how are you seeing AI impact either negatively or positively the way people either slot your product into their WordPress site or ask for support?
So I think we've seen both of those use cases where we've had people come that are deep into the AI woods and they're like, please lead us out of out of this cesspool that we've arrived in. And generally those are the times where it's kind of tough because they're like, hey, you're like really deep in, you're going to have to, get a contractor to help out with this. Obviously, if it's simple enough, if it's like a simple snippet that they've whipped up, we're all about it. We'll help out, figure out a way to close that gap that they're not understanding, or just sometimes the AI doesn't understand a particular nuance, of what needs to happen. I do think the more interesting is we have a lot of goodwill with our customer base. I think, in some part just because we have published so much free resources over the years. And so we do have a lot of customers coming to us and offering us their AI coded solutions that are working for them, solving their need. And it always kind of breaks my heart a little bit to have to essentially say, yeah, thank you, but we also can't really do a whole lot with this because there's a huge gap between making a product that solves a specific need for a specific customer versus how do you take that product and then again, put it into a product suite that we need to make sure it works with all the other products in the product suite. We need to make sure it has a general enough appeal. If it's too specific, too niche, it's just not going to be a good fit for us. We're just adding overhead without adding any real value to the suite. But yeah, so it's just that's funny that you mentioned that because I've had like at least 3 of those in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I try to get into AI as much as possible. Again, I think when the last time we did a webinar, which was, I don't know, maybe 10 months ago-ish with Gravity Forms and talking about your stuff, I think we did one about your OpenAI integration, like the things that you were doing. So that was actually almost a year ago, right? Headed into the holidays. And I was like super pumped on a lot of the like AI vibe coding stuff, and like all these tools were coming out at a rapid pace. We were Bolt, Lovable, Replit, like they're still here. But I even find myself going, you know what? I'm not going to waste that time anymore building that like little idea that I have with like a React-based app, like SaaS-based, like interesting idea. Because what I've done since then, to my own, admitting my own, faults here with AI, is drank the Kool-Aid, dove in, and I was like, this is awesome. I can build anything, and realize that as soon as you start to build something of any kind of like utility or value, it just becomes really complex. And if you don't know code, that vibe coding session is just spinning the wheels, and you're just like, I am not accomplishing this thing. Like I was working with this app that I was building, just trying to set up permissions, like user role permissions. And my greater point here is like, I think we take a lot of what WordPress gives us for granted, right? Permissions and user roles and stuff like that. I start building a little SaaS app and I'm like, oh, I guess user permissions, user login, dashboard, user management. And then I'm like, why does everyone has super admin access every time I log into this app? Why isn't this working? And I'm just fighting. And then I'm looking up, React libraries like Castle for, and I don't even know what, I'm so deep into unknown territory that like, I get it as a power user and somebody who like helps build software. Like I get the fundamentals, but I can't deploy it into the code. Like I know I need security. I know a package should be the way it should be done, but I can't get it to work. And
Yeah.
I found myself just throwing those projects away and be like, nah, I'm just going to go back to something like WordPress because it's done for me and a human cares about it.
Oh yeah, it's actually interesting that that whole idea again, that theme of getting lost in the woods. It's actually, I was introduced to that through chess. In chess, the top players, they memorize all of the openings, and so in order to be competitive, they will go off script, if you will, out of the book, and they call it taking your opponent into the woods. And that's how I feel like with AI, when you get there's a certain depth where you're like, okay, we're just officially off the rails now. And it takes a lot to kind of get it back. The other interesting thing there is that I think AI itself gets lost in the woods. It gets so deep into the project that it can't, see the forest anymore through the trees. It's just and you're asking for these, what, seem to you as a human who can think critically and understand, you think this is actually really simple. Why is it struggling to understand what I'm asking for? And it's because it's just so deep. You've added so much complexity that it cannot see the whole and it can only see the pieces. And so it fixes one thing and breaks another. And then you repeat. And then you eventually just cry yourself to sleep.
I fear we're in a bubble, but I won't get on that soapbox. That would fill up the a whole hour of conversation. We'll save that for another episode. I invited you here because API Alchemist, I'm really interested to see where this product goes. It's going to be connecting up to AIs, pulling data in, sending data out, connecting it up with Populate Anything, makes this 1-2 combo super great. But hold that thought. We're going to push that out just a little bit. I want to talk about GP bookings. That's the latest, I guess these are my words, latest big feature to come out from the team recently, right? That seems like a pretty big product, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say so. As far as timeline, API Alchemist is the newest, but GP bookings, we released it as essentially early access, and we're working towards a beta 1. So it's been, the news is kind of like trickling out a little bit more slowly, whereas API Alchemist, we just YOLO'd it because we felt so strongly about where it was as a product. But yeah. Bookings, what questions do you have? What can I tell you about this awesome product?
What does that squarely compete up against? What's the SaaS provider that we're really trying to take down with Gravity Forms, GP bookings, and WordPress?
I don't think that's how we really approached it. And I don't know that there is a single. I do have my eyes on Calendly, and I forget, what do you use, Matt, for your scheduling?
I use SavvyCal.
SavvyCal, yeah. So a lot of those services where they are incredibly robust and have so many features, but most of the time you only need 5 of those features. You're not using everything to the degree that, and it's a whole, it's a yearly subscription or a monthly subscription that you're paying, and it adds up. It adds up considerably, especially if you have other needs that are in the bookings realm. And that is kind of what our thinking was. Look, there are so many similarities in booking requirements, for events, for reservations, as far as appointment-based bookings. A lot of these things, they're different and they're unique, and that's why you see a lot of services that really specialize in one of them. But we know from our customers that our customers generally want a solid platform. You're just talking about WordPress as a platform. That is our goal with GP bookings. We want it to be a booking platform that it'll get you 80 to 90% there on almost any type of booking that you want to do. And then the rest of it, that 10%, we're going to help you kind of figure out that little bit. Maybe it takes a smidge, a hint of custom coding if you have a really edge case requirement. But yeah, our customers do this time and time again with our products. They come in, they build out the bulk of the requirements, and then they just tweak a little bit at the end to tailor it to either their own needs or their client needs. And that's what we're really hoping to achieve with GP bookings.
Any kind of time-based, maybe service business is a good fit for that, right? If somebody's listening to this and they're either I think most freelancers are trying to get away from hourly bookings, but you never know. Maybe you got some consultation or some pre-sales time. They could book, a client could book a slot of time with them, schedule it, pay for it, and all is well in their world.
Yep, 100%. I mean, anything to do with dates and times where you are offering a service or even a property, an object, rentals are also supported.
Ooh, I like that idea, like an Airbnb kind of thing.
Yes, 100%. And it can do it all. And the field, there's like a really special field in there called the booking time field, and it dynamically updates itself to handle the type of service and resource that you have selected. And so that, again, just we're really leaning into this idea of flexibility.
And this is directly in Gravity Forms. I know you have stuff for WooCommerce. Does it work with WooCommerce products too, or like does it stay strictly right in the Gravity Forms, I guess, ecosystem, for lack of a better phrase?
No, it works with WooCommerce through our Product Configurator plugin. So yeah, so you get WordPress, you add Product Configurator to tie Gravity Forms into WordPress. And then anything that's supported in Gravity Forms is supported through Product Configurator. So that means GP Bookings, which works with Gravity Forms, can also work with WooCommerce.
Nice. So we've been hinting at and saying things like WordPress as a platform. We want WordPress to win. Of course, we're very biased, being Gravity Forms guys. But open source WordPress has never been under so much pressure to perform and to be the choice of software, because of AI and because of like the competition, the Shopify's, the Wix's, the Webflows of the world. All these like closed source systems, they do portions of open source to be fair, but their platforms are monthly subscription platforms. They control the data, they control the price points, et cetera, et cetera. WordPress has never been under so much pressure as it stands close to the tail end of 2025. I always look at WordPress as, the platform of choice for anybody who wants to control their content, to control the experience on their website for their customers or their users, data portability, obviously open source code. You launched this new API tool, which allows people to connect and talk to APIs. You said you YOLO'd it. Those were just your short words before, but I'm sure you had a use case for it. I'm sure you were using something before going, this is a magic unlock right here. Like, we need to turn this into a product. So what was that aha moment for you to build API Alchemist?
So we actually were trying to build something different. We were trying to solve a problem that we have with Populate Anything. And for those who aren't familiar, Populate Anything allows you to populate choices and field values from pretty much any local source. So anything on your server. And one of the, historically most requested features was people were saying, hey, we want to populate data from remote sources. Like, we want to get data from, the National Highway Safety Patrol. We want to get stuff from our healthcare API service that we're using. And we want to populate that into this form, either again as choices in a field so they can select, hey, this is my insurance provider, or as values. So, hey, like, I have a VIN, I want to be able to look up all the details on this car and save that to the entry on submission. And so we're trying to figure out how to do that. We wrote like a snippet that kind of did the bare bones version of that. And so then we started down this road of just trying to make almost like an add-on for Populate Anything. And then during that process, that's when we realized, okay, wow, wait a second. We can make something a lot more robust that solves that need, but also opens just 1,000 other doors. 1,000's probably underselling it, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea of, okay, so like, what else? I mean, what else do you want to do with data? Like, you want to send Gravity Forms data away. You want to pull remote data into Gravity Forms. And then also you want to not just pull that data into a Gravity Form live, aka with Populate Anything, but you want to enrich data oftentimes. You want to take data, again, the VIN is a good example of that, where you have the user entered VIN and you submit it, and it can go off and fetch that data, and then it can enrich the entry with all that data that you may need for subsequent processing of that entry, or just search data. We did a really cool demo at our workshop last week where I don't know if you're familiar with Nodemation, but it is amazing, much better than Zapier in my opinion. And you can do a whole workflow there. So you send the data to Nodemation and have a whole workflow that, in our example that we use their tool that allows you to extract data from PDF files. And then we extracted it in Nodemation and then sent it back to the form. So that was it wasn't really a specific use case that we had in mind when we started developing it. It was just that aha moment of potential. Again, our customers give us a million ideas every day. And this was one of those things that we realized kind of as we were developing it is, oh, wow, this solves this, this solves this, this solves this. And so we just ran with it.
API Alchemist, by default, if somebody were to just purchase it today, throw it into their Gravity forms, I just want to paint the picture of the 1-2 combo of that and Populate Anything. If they just get API Alchemist, you can send data. Well, you correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. You can access the API, an external API, and then send that data from Gravity forms to that API endpoint.
Yep.
But Populate Anything would allow you to bring that data into the Gravity form and then manipulate, like have that manipulation happen there, whether, it's saving to your entries or sending out to another API. The 1-2 combo is you can send anything with API Alchemist, but in order to manipulate it and maybe store it on WordPress, you need to have Populate Anything. Am I getting that picture correct?
Almost. So the nuance here is that with API Alchemist, you can send data on submission and you can receive a response back and update the entry, but it has to happen. That is all happening post submission, right? Now, what Populate Anything unlocks is the ability to do all of that live on the form. So you can they enter something on the form, make a selection and a choice, enter a value. You can send that user entered data off to the remote API and get a response back immediately and then populate that response into the form. So think like chain selects where like you're doing like a year make model all from a remote data source. Or again, going back to the VIN example, the user manually types in their VIN and you can populate their year, make, and model right there and just say, hey, just validating this is the car that we found for that VIN. It just kind of improves the UX for the scenarios where that would be valuable. In some cases, again, like when you're doing like enrichment, you don't care. The user's never really intended to see it. It's just like after the submission, you want that data. And the other nice thing, because with Populate Anything, you're doing it live, you can also use it as a validation tool. So if you don't get a valid response for that VIN, you can let them know like, hey, this isn't a valid response, and you can hide the submit button so they can't proceed. That way you're not getting trash submissions or, even again, just going back to UX for them, they're aware that they made a mistake entering their VIN and that, they need to update that before they submit the form.
Yeah. This is when I see these tools come together, like anytime I can explore an API and do something with WordPress, like I'm all in. This is like vibe coding to me. And this is when I knocked on your door. I'm like, hey man, let's come on the show and let's talk about this, because I really see WordPress as like this way of low code, no code, kind of like database of content. Like, sure, we can build websites and blogs and e-commerce stores, but I truly think the future of WordPress is to give somebody like me or some power user somewhere, or as it gets easier, somebody even, below that level, the ability to like build these databases of content that they have, especially with custom post types, custom fields, your tools, Gravity forms, being able to pull in and send out data, manipulate that data, and create your own thing of content is really appealing to me. And I'm just curious, like, how you see WordPress evolving over the future. Like, do you see it continuing to just be a sort of like standalone CMS, making websites and blogs, or do you see it evolving in a way where, like Matt Mullenweg famously said a while back, like an operating system for the web? Like, do you see those kinds of things, or where do you see that future of WordPress settling up for you?
It's funny. I forgot Matt Mullenweg actually had said that, but I also, that's how I explain WordPress to most people who aren't familiar with it. I say, hey, you have your phone has an operating system, you install apps on your phone. WordPress is an operating system for websites, then you install plugins, which are essentially apps for your website. So as far as where I see WordPress going, I don't know. That's my honest answer. It's a wild landscape out there right now. AI, definitely makes everyone feel a little jittery about the future. But I kind of go back to this idea of the platform. I mean, you get so much for free with WordPress. I mean, literally for free, with WordPress, that it makes it, I think, just a very compelling starting point. The future that I kind of imagine for WordPress at this point, are the biggest leap forward, I think it's going to be this idea, MCP servers where you can, issue commands and it can do things on your site. I think the true building future of WordPress will be the ability to assemble all of the different tools together. So rather than you having to do all this legwork to find, which plugin can handle this feature, which plugin can handle this feature, when we get to the point where you can just go into WordPress and say, here's the feature I need, find all the code that's already written, that's already been, has security audits and has been supported for 15 years, like Gravity Forms, and just install that for me and go ahead and, set up what I'm talking about, like whatever, the requirements are for that project. And I think if we can get somewhere like that, I think it has a really good chance of taking on that kind of place where a lot of these other shops, other platforms, I guess, I think they'd have a hard time competing with that. It's the same reason that I think Gravity Forms itself has done so well, is that the ecosystem is just insane. Like, there's a lot of really top premium plugins out there. Again, a lot of the shops in the space, and I'm getting tooting our own horn here, like, we do security audits. We are taking the time to make sure that this code is code that you can deploy on live websites and not have to worry, not have to stay up at night making sure that someone's not hacking your site. And I think that's such it's like a gold mine for AI. We can just figure out how to make AI the assembler rather than the humans having to go in and manually, because that's the friction point right now, right? I think for a lot of customers is that they have to go in and learn WordPress, and learn, a big part of that's learning all the plugins that come along with WordPress.
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole range of thoughts around, like, I was testing out the tool, and one of the things I really love about WordPress is that just out of the box, unless your web host has modified it, or maybe your IT team has modified it, but out of the box, you have this REST API built right in. In other words, I can knock on the door of WordPress and say, how many blog posts does this site have? What's the content? How many users do they have? What's the media count? Like, all of this information. In fact, I vibe coded a tool to help me explore that with WordPress, and I still use it. I use it when I was demoing your products to help, just show me what information was available. And then I found out your plugin is going to do that too. So I built this little tool called WP-API-Explorer.com. And if you just punch in your WordPress URL in there, it's going to show you the response of the WordPress REST API. It's how many blog posts you have, when the last blog post was, when the first blog post was. And the ability to get that data, I think, is so important for the open web and humanity. Case in point, again, like, you built a demo using the highway.
Yeah, National Highway Safety. It's National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Yeah,
NHTSA.
And there's all kinds of data out there, weather data, NASA data. I looked at my state website. There's all these APIs that we as citizens of the United States have access to. And I think when we start to build tools like API Alchemist and, of course, Gravity Forms, Populate Anything, what we're enabling is people who are not developers to be able to explore this stuff and build things with it. Like, we don't know what people are going to build with it, but I was building out, like, hey, let me use API Alchemist, knock on the door of Matt Mullenweg's WordPress website, pull in all of his blog posts, and then use Populate Anything to display them in a drop-down in a Gravity form. So I could, effectively, any WordPress website with a REST API, I could access blog posts. I could make my own little site with, like, reviews, like, oh, this blog post, let me leave a review for this blog post that this person wrote, so long as it's WordPress and it has that open REST API access. like, then I started thinking like, well, now I could actually, through the REST API, through API Alchemist, I could pull in the content of that blog post right into Gravity Forms. I could have it send to OpenAI, ChatGPT, using your plugin, and say, hey, summarize this for me, or rewrite this for me, or give me the tone of this. And then I could have like, I could trigger so many other things with like conditional logic in Gravity Forms and say, if tone is whatever, like I could switch Gravity Forms to give me other options. And I'm just sitting there going, God, there's like endless opportunities
Yeah.
with this kind of thing. And again, like I really just can't stress enough, like headless WordPress, I think is going to be we're going to see that take off a little bit more thanks to AI, right? I think people can build apps on top of the REST API, but now we can do that right in WordPress with your tools. And it's going to be fascinating to see how all of this stuff evolves.
I agree with that. That's actually a good, I think a good argument for, your vision for, WordPress as the universal platform of the web. The thing that you said that I think that struck me the most there about API Alchemist specifically is just I did not anticipate it, but it has been a really lovely surprise. And that is how approachable it has made REST APIs. We've had so many customers that are non-technical, but when they see the UI for API Alchemist and they see some of the demos and they see how it's, you put in it, you're just copying, pasting URLs and then everything else is point and click after that. It's been awesome, like seeing them get inspired for all the things, I get asked at least once a day right now, can it integrate with this API? And I'm like, it's a REST API. So yes, it absolutely can. And that is like a great, just kind of unlocks a lot of potential for our customers and for anyone using Gravity Forms. So that's like super exciting.
Yeah. I mean, when you put in an API, and I am fanboying a bit on the product because I think you're 100% right that it's opening up stuff that people have never realized was available. So like if you put in any WordPress site with the REST API enabled, and you see like all the responses of like everything you can do, post, get, all this stuff, all these endpoints, all of that data, and your plugin makes it easy for somebody to like browse all of that. You're like, wow, man, like I can do a lot. I think about the higher ed a lot from my background of like running an agency and working at a hosting company that did a lot of enterprise stuff. Like there were higher ed organizations that have hundreds, if not thousands of WordPress websites, and they all have, ways of like, so many different ways of like managing those sites and accessing the data and pulling data into the central college website or university website. Like now it's just going to be so damn easy with your stuff. And it's just like, then there's that other combo of like custom fields and custom post types. And now you can make, that's where like the database comes in for me, is like, man, if you can build your database of content or resources, and then you need to pull that stuff into another WordPress site, through API Alchemist and, Gravity Forms and Populate Anything, it's like, it's a super powerful tool. So kudos on that launch. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, we're only going to make it easier too. We have lots of plans to make it even more approachable as far as both education around REST APIs and also just improving the UX of the plugin just to make it as seamless as possible.
And I got to put you on the hot seat as the CEO.
Let's go.
How do you see this competing with maybe like the add-ons that you have in your Gravity Connect suite, right? Do you see it sort of going, all right, this is for the real DIYer here, if they can like wire stuff up with API Alchemist to send information to, say, Notion or something like that through the API, will they not need my Notion Connect tool? Like, how do you see those, how do you define those lines between API Alchemist can send data anywhere, and then I have all of these individual add-ons to send data to those individual sites?
Yeah, that's a great question, because as we were developing API Alchemist, it slowly dawned on us what we were doing.
Yeah.
I will say, so some of the simple connections you may not need. I'm just thinking, for example, Notion. Notion's the one where if you just want to send a Notion request off, With API Alchemist, yes, absolutely. You still get a more tailored experience with the Notion connection, especially if you don't want to fuss with the API level of knowledge. There is still some learning there, right? Whereas with Notion, you just go in, you build your template in a layout or a UI that is completely familiar and comfortable to you. Whereas if you go through API Alchemist, yes, it is easy to figure out, but there is still a level of figuring it out.
Yeah.
And the other differentiator is something like Google Sheets, for example, or Google Sheets connection. That is incredibly robust. It does a lot of efficiency. There's a lot of efficiency code in that to handle scenarios that API Alchemist is not going to be quite robust enough to handle. And we're going to also see that we have some connections coming out in the future for uploading files to different services, for example. And API Alchemist works great if your file is a small, like under 1 megabyte, but at the second that you're getting into large files, that's where you're going to need like a dedicated connection that's going to have all of the robust code in place to support that specific use case.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like if you're a freelancer agency listening to this, just thinking about my days as an agency owner, like handing over a site to somebody and saying like, here's your Gravity Forms, and you do the education walkthrough and all that, show the people how to use it, whatever. As easy as API Alchemist is, like you still got to be more of that developer mindset to even understand what the heck it is that you're looking at. Authentication, headers, you guys do a great job with like inline documentation and help tutorials and stuff like that, but you're certainly not giving that to somebody that's like managing a MailChimp newsletter, right? Like, you're not going to be like, hey, well, API Alchemist will set it up. I'll just show you how to like set your header and your authentication. You're like, what? Like, yeah. I think those tailored experiences of like the Notion add-on and the other connections that you have, like it's just grab that API key or sign into that service. It's authenticated, done, right? Like, yeah, you map the fields. That's it. You're not looking at JSON responses, right? Yep. Which is like totally different, for most common folks. So I think it's a clear win.
Oh yeah, even the idea of you're talking about like mapping the data with the established plugins, the established connections. There is a lot of formatting of that data to get it into the right format that the service is expecting. Again, some of that is possible with API Alchemist, it's just more work. But as far as how we're approaching future connections with API Alchemist is definitely going to be our litmus test. We're going to set it up first in API Alchemist, see how it works, and where we see we can add additional value above API Alchemist, those will be the connections that we pursue moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. Dave Smith, Gravity Wiz, where can folks go to get the GP booking stuff that we talked about today? API Alchemist, Populate Anything, where can they go to find more?
Always start with gravitywiz.com. Check out Spellbook. It is our platform plugin. We got a platform theme going on today, Matt. And Spellbook will just get you access to all of our products, documentation, purchasing, all the free plugins. In the future are all of our snippets. We have over 1,000 in our snippet library. So gravitywiz.com. And then next stop is Spellbook.
Awesome stuff. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. That's it for today's episode. If you could do one more thing for me today, share this episode on social media, your favorite Facebook group or Discord channel. Spread the word about this podcast. It really helps. If you haven't added Breakdown to your favorite podcast app, point your browser to gravityforms.com/breakdown and click the icon of your app to add us and listen to us every 2 weeks. Okay, we'll see you in the next episode.